One day, Taskia and Alya were discussing the events of the Diponegoro resistance. They discussed in their spare time while waiting for the next lesson to start. In classroom.
Hey Taskia,
Oh, hi Al.
I wanna ask you something about Diponegoro resistance. Honestly, I don't really understand how the story goes.
I think you must watch these videos.
A good idea. Let's go watch it, Tas.
A story of Diponegoro's resistance.
Pangeran Diponegoro is a nobleman of the Jakarta Palace from the descendants of his father, Sultan Hamengkubuwono III. Being born in palace, environment didn't make Prince Diponegoro live spoiled person and lured by worldly power. Under the care of his grandmother Ratu Kedantan, he studied religion and lived a simple life in a remote village far from the hustle and bustle of the Jakarta Palace. Associating with commoners made him learn to live and understand every complaint and problem experienced by the commoners independently. Prince Diponegoro also always respected religious leaders and always wanted to study religion. However, living under the pressures of the Dutch colonialists wasn't easy. High taxes, as always as massive change to the customary order in Java made the people suffer even more, coupled with the defeat of the British and the transfer of their colonies of the Dutch. The Javanese people in particular suffered even more as a result of the hard labor that was carried out to pay for all the costs of the Dutch war. It was this fault that made Prince Diponegoro unable to sit idly by. He gathered religious leaders and also the princes of the palace who had the same goal, namely to expel the Dutch and restore the old Japanese order. Tegalrejo Village, 20 July 1825. At this moment, already known by the Dutch and therefore the Dutch too, also moved quickly by sending his troops to capture the troops.
Prince, there was danger. The Dutch are heading to our village with complete weapons.
Calm down, don't be panicked. Pack up all the weapons and supplies as quickly as possible and prepare the horses for us to the Selarong Cave.
Ready, execute Prince.
Then there was the first battle between the Dutch and Prince Diponegoro's troops. Prince Diponegoro's troops were able to turn things around and managed to escape from the Dutch impromptu attack. Although they didn't catch Prince Diponegoro, the Dutch managed to occupy the village of Tegalrejo and burned it to the ground. Selarong Cave, Saturday, 23 July 1825.
Yesterday we were attacked. Javanese culture have been humiliated and people are getting more and more tormented. Are we going to stand idly by and just obey the invaders? Are we going to just stand by and watch them act as they please in our homeland?
No, Prince.
Let's unite our strength, raise our arms princes, kiai, champions, farmers, traders, all we ignite our spirit to liberate the land of Java from the invaders of this country. Allahu Akbar!
Margolunyu, West Magelang, July 1825. A series of victories were won by troops of Prince Diponegoro. The villages that were formerly controlled by the Dutch were reoccupied by troops of Diponegoro by using guerrilla strategy. Besides that, the supplies line had been cut off. That's all. The Dutch supplies convoys were seized and taken over by Prince Diponegoro's troops. Dutch headquarters, Magelang, East Java.
What have you been doing all this time? Why the Diponegoro troops still hanging around out there?
Sorry, General. We have done everything we can to defeat Diponegoro. But every strategy we carry out is always defeated by their troops. Unlike those who come and leave the battlefield just like them, our troops are not used to fighting with the forest. It seems we need another strategy, General.
How great are they?
Cassius, what strategy would you use if you encounter such an army?
Well, General, I think we can use the shelter strategy to practice their strategy. It's very useful when I use it to halt the rebel resistance in Batavia.
Alright, Lieutenant. Try to apply that strategy and reclaim the area they have taken directly.
Okay, ready to carry out, General.
October 1828. The manufacture of the result of Prince Diponegoro's troops can do it. Diponegoro troops feel cornered for not being able to launch a guerrilla attack. The patrols that were immediately prepared by the Dutch in their fort provide a dangerous threat to Prince Diponegoro troops. Defeat by defeat in every battle was finally experienced by Prince Diponegoro troops, but the spirit of struggle had not been off throughout the troops and a lot of blood was spilled. The situation was inversely proportional to the other side and made Prince Diponegoro and his advisor think for a moment to anticipate what step will be taken.
Melangi, 18 November 1828. Due to the difficult pressure and conflicts that arise between Kiai Maja and Prince Diponegoro, Kiai Maja brought along 500 of his best troops with the Dutch in Melangi to hold negotiations. However, with the deception of the Dutch over the lure of power and property, Kiai Maja and his 500 troops surrendered to the Dutch and were exiled from the land of Java until the end of his life. A year later, after many battles and injuries during the Java War, due to physical pressure and food shortages caused by the warlord Diponegoro, Sentot Alibasa surrendered himself to the Dutch. He and his 500 troops were exiled to West Sumatra and served against the Padri from 1832 until 1833.
Pegunungan Kelir, 21 September 1829. A series of defeat after defeats and the surrender of Kiai Maja and Sentot Alibasa inevitably made Prince Diponegoro lose his way. The resistance continues to be launched even though the current situation of Prince Diponegoro troops is difficult. The Dutch Texel fortress strategy has cut off the supply line for Prince Diponegoro troops. The people and troops are in a state of desperation. This year something happened which finally made Prince Diponegoro sad. His uncle and military advisor, Prince Ngabehi, and his child died in the battlefield.
Magelang, 28 March 1830.
As a result of a series of defeats and also the increasing suffering of the Javanese people due to the war, Prince Diponegoro also decided to negotiate so that several war-related areas did not suffer. The meeting between Lieutenant de Cook and Prince Diponegoro was chaotic.
You'd better not go back to Matesi. Just stay here with me.
Why am I not allowed to return? What should I do here? I just came to make friends like most Japanese people after the end of the fasting mode.
I will hold you back so this problem can be solved quickly.
What's the problem, General? Actually, I don't feel any problem or I don't hate anyone to.
No, it's up to the prince to agree or not. I will settle the political issues today.
General, you're so mean, hastily making decisions. You hurt, it's rotten. If I know this, I will not let your envoys to Magelang. If this is the case, it's because of your evil nature. I'm not afraid to die. No, there's nothing left but to be killed. I didn't mean to avoid it.
Diponegoro also approached some of his followers. Albeit, he then took a cup of tea, drank it, then walked out. The residents' horse carriage, which had been prepared in front of the house, immediately took Diponegoro to the land of exile.
and with his rules, the cook arrested Prince Diponegoro as soon as the meeting was over and was taken to Batavia to be exiled to Makassar. Prince Diponegoro, who was caught and exiled, met the war that has been going on in Java for 5 years ended, causing a lot of loss for both parties. However, this fight was used as inspiration by other resistance throughout the archipelago.
Back to Taskia and Alya in classroom. So how? Now, you know the story of the Diponegoro's war, right?
Yes, of course, Tas.
So, there are several factors that cause this war all. Firstly, because of the spread of Western culture which is contrary to Islamic teachings. Secondly, the tax burden by the people is getting heavier.
Then what else, Tas?
The last one, because the Dutch wanted to build a railroad over the tomb of Prince Diponegoro's ancestors.
Wow, very stressful. Besides that, the consequences of this war are numerous. This war claimed many lives, as many as 200,000 people, including 7,000 natives and 8,000 Dutch troops. Then, colonial government also experienced a financial crisis because the cost of supporting this war were a lot.
Now, we know how hard the heroes fight for our homeland. There are so many values that can be taken from this story, one of which willing to sacrifice for the sake of many people.
That's right. Therefore, we mustn't forget the history of our heroes. Anyway, thank you so much for your help, Tess.
No problem, Al. Finally, they finished their discussion about Diponegoro's war. They returned to continue their studies. Pancasila values related to Diponegoro resistance are 1. Believe in the one and only God. Even though he is in a state of danger, Prince Diponegoro always remembers Allah. 2. A just and civilized humanity. When the Diponegoro's war began, there was an all-out massacre. Humans were treated unfairly and uncivilized.
3. Unity of Indonesia. Because Prince Diponegoro wanted all groups of people from farmers to champions to unite against the Dutch who had humiliated Javanese custom and tortured the Javanese people in their own land.
4. Democracy, led by the wisdom of the representatives of the people. Prince Diponegoro prioritized common interest over personal interest. 5. Social justice for all Indonesian people. Prince Diponegoro was moved to fight against the invaders when his fellow humans were treated unfairly.